Right now, in this very moment, there are two versions of you. There's the version that settles for average, that accepts defeat, that makes excuses when things get tough. And then there's the version that wins, that finds a way no matter what, that turns every obstacle into an opportunity. The question is, which version will you choose to be? Most people go through life as mental weaklings. They let circumstances control them instead of controlling their circumstances. They react instead of respond. They hope instead of strategize. They wish instead of will. And then they wonder why they never get the results they want. Why success always seems to slip through their fingers. Why other people seem to have all the luck. But here's what they don't understand. Winning isn't about luck. It's not about having the perfect circumstances or the ideal conditions. Winning is about training your mind to operate at a level that most people can't even comprehend. It's about developing mental frameworks so powerful that failure becomes impossible. Today, you're going to learn how to become mentally unstoppable. You're going to discover the exact thinking patterns, strategies, and mindsets that separate champions from everyone else. By the time we're done, you'll have the mental tools to win in any situation, overcome any obstacle, and achieve any goal you set your mind to. But I need you to understand something. This isn't just another motivational speech. This is a complete rewiring of how your mind operates. This is about becoming a different person entirely. Are you ready to leave the weak version of yourself behind forever? Chapter 1. The Winner's Mindset Foundation. The first thing you need to understand is that winning starts in your mind long before it shows up in your results. Every champion, every successful person, every individual who consistently wins in life has one thing in common. They think differently than everyone else. They have what I call the winner's mindset. And it's the foundation everything else is built on. Most people have a loser's mindset, and they don't even realize it. They approach challenges thinking about all the ways they might fail. They focus on obstacles instead of opportunities. They see problems where winners see possibilities. They ask, "What if I can't do this?" While winners ask, "How can I make this happen?" This fundamental difference in thinking determines everything. The winner's mindset is built on several core beliefs that you must adopt if you want to win consistently. First, you must believe that every situation, no matter how challenging, contains the seeds of opportunity. When most people see a setback, winners see a setup for a comeback. When others see a closed door, winners see a window waiting to be opened. This isn't positive thinking nonsense. This is strategic thinking that looks for advantages where others see only disadvantages. Second, you must understand that you are always in control, even when it doesn't feel like it. You can't control what happens to you, but you can always control what happens in you. You can't control external circumstances, but you can control your response to those circumstances. And your response, not the circumstances themselves, determines your results. This is where most people give their power away. They blame their failures on external factors: the economy, their boss, their background, their resources. Winners take full responsibility for their results because they know that responsibility equals power. Third, You must adopt what I call the solution-first mentality. Most people are problem-focused. They spend their mental energy dwelling on what's wrong, what's not working, what's missing. Winners are solution-focused. They acknowledge problems quickly, then immediately shift their mental energy to finding solutions. They don't waste time complaining or making excuses because they know that every minute spent on problems is a minute not spent on solutions. Fourth, you must understand that failure is feedback, not a verdict. Most people see failure as proof that they can't do something. Winners see failure as information about what doesn't work, which brings them one step closer to finding what does work. They fail fast, fail forward, and fail better. They extract lessons from every setback and use those lessons to improve their approach. The winner's mindset also requires you to think in terms of certainty, not possibility. When most people set goals, they think, "I hope this works," or "maybe I can do this." Winners think, "This will happen," and "I will find a way." This isn't blind optimism. It's strategic certainty based on their commitment to do whatever it takes to succeed. They don't leave their success to chance because they know that hope is not a strategy. You must also develop what I call outcome independence. This means you're so focused on the process of winning that you're not emotionally attached to any specific outcome. You do everything right. You give maximum effort. You execute flawlessly. And then you let the results take care of themselves. This paradox of caring deeply about winning while being detached from specific outcomes gives you incredible mental freedom and reduces the pressure that causes most people to choke in crucial moments. Finally, the winner's mindset requires you to think long-term while acting short-term. You have a clear vision of where you're going, but you're completely focused on what you need to do today to get there. You don't get distracted by immediate gratification or temporary setbacks because you're playing a bigger game. You understand that every action you take today is either moving you closer to your goals or further away from them, and you choose accordingly. This mindset isn't something you adopt once and forget about. It's something you must reinforce every day through your thoughts, your words, and your actions. You must guard your mind against negative influences, surround yourself with winning examples, and constantly remind yourself of these core principles until they become automatic. Chapter 2. Mental toughness under pressure. The real test of your mental strength doesn't come when everything is going well. It comes when you're under pressure, when the stakes are high, when everyone is watching, when failure would be devastating. This is where mental weaklings crumble and champions rise. The ability to perform at your best when conditions are at their worst is what separates those who win occasionally from those who win consistently. Mental toughness under pressure starts with understanding what pressure really is. Pressure is nothing more than the gap between what's expected and what you believe you can deliver. When you're completely confident in your abilities and thoroughly prepared for the challenge, pressure becomes excitement. When you're unprepared or lack confidence, pressure becomes anxiety. The external situation is the same, but your internal response determines whether pressure crushes you or fuels you. Most people handle pressure poorly because they make it about them instead of about the task. They start thinking about what others will think if they fail, how embarrassing it would be to mess up, what the consequences of failure might be. This self-focused thinking creates anxiety because it puts your ego on the line. Champions handle pressure differently. They make it about the task, not about themselves. They focus on execution, not on outcomes. They think about process, not about consequences. The first key to performing under pressure is preparation that goes beyond the obvious. Most people prepare for success, but champions prepare for adversity. They don't just practice when conditions are perfect. They practice when conditions are terrible. They deliberately create pressure situations in training so that real pressure feels familiar. They visualize not just succeeding, but overcoming obstacles, dealing with setbacks, and finding ways to win when everything goes wrong. Mental rehearsal is crucial for pressure performance. Champions spend time mentally practicing high-pressure scenarios until their response becomes automatic. They visualize themselves staying calm when others panic, thinking clearly when others get confused, executing perfectly when others choke. They program their mind with the right responses so that when pressure hits, they don't have to think about what to do. They just do it. Breathing control is your most powerful tool for managing pressure in the moment. When pressure hits, most people's breathing becomes shallow and rapid, which triggers the body's stress response and clouds thinking. Champions use breathing as an anchor to stay calm and focused. They practice deep, controlled breathing until it becomes a habit they can access instantly under pressure. 4 counts in, hold for 4. 4 counts out, hold for 4. This simple pattern can transform your state in seconds. You must also develop what I call pressure perspective. This means understanding that pressure situations are opportunities, not threats. They're chances to separate yourself from the competition, to show what you're really made of, to prove your mental strength. When you start seeing pressure as a privilege rather than a burden, your entire relationship with challenging situations changes. You stop trying to avoid pressure and start seeking it out because you know it's where growth happens. The ability to compartmentalize is essential for pressure performance. Champions have the ability to block out everything that doesn't matter and focus only on what they can control in the present moment. They don't let past mistakes affect current execution. They don't let future consequences distract from present focus. They create a mental bubble around themselves that nothing can penetrate except what they choose to let in. Pressure also reveals the difference between those who are driven by fear and those who are driven by purpose. Fear-driven people perform to avoid negative consequences. Purpose-driven people perform to achieve positive outcomes. When pressure hits, fear-driven people tighten up because they're trying not to lose. Purpose-driven people excel because they're trying to win. Your motivation under pressure determines your performance under pressure. You must train yourself to thrive in chaos. While others get overwhelmed by complexity and uncertainty, you must develop the ability to find clarity in confusion, to make good decisions with incomplete information, to take decisive action when others are paralyzed by analysis. This requires practicing decision-making under time pressure, learning to trust your instincts, and developing comfort with uncertainty. The ultimate pressure performance mindset is what I call controlled aggression. This is a state where you're completely calm internally but intensely focused externally. You're relaxed but ready, peaceful but powerful, controlled but aggressive in your pursuit of victory. You're not trying to force outcomes, but you're absolutely committed to excellence in execution. Remember, pressure is a privilege. It means you're in a position that matters, doing something significant, with a chance to make a real impact. Most people never get the opportunity to perform under real pressure because they never put themselves in positions where it matters. The fact that you're feeling pressure means you're exactly where you need to be. Chapter 3. Strategic Thinking and Decision-Making. Winners don't just outwork their competition, they outthink them. While others are reacting to situations, winners are anticipating them. While others are making emotional decisions, winners are making strategic ones. The ability to think strategically and make excellent decisions consistently is what allows some people to achieve extraordinary results with seemingly ordinary effort. Strategic thinking begins with understanding the difference between strategy and tactics. Most people focus on tactics, the specific actions they need to take to solve immediate problems. Winners focus on strategy, the overall approach that will lead to long-term success. Tactics are important, but without strategy, you're just busy, not productive. Strategy provides the framework that makes all your tactics more effective. The foundation of strategic thinking is systems thinking. Instead of seeing isolated events, you must learn to see patterns, connections, and underlying structures. Every situation you encounter is part of a larger system, and understanding that system gives you tremendous advantage. You start to see how different elements interact, how changes in one area affect other areas, and how to make interventions that create positive ripple effects throughout the entire system. Strategic thinkers always start with the end in mind. Before making any decision or taking any action, they're crystal clear about what they're trying to achieve. They define success specifically and work backward from that vision to determine the best path forward. This reverse engineering approach ensures that every action is aligned with the ultimate objective and prevents the common trap of being busy without being effective. One of the most powerful strategic thinking tools is scenario planning. Instead of assuming things will go according to plan, strategic thinkers prepare for multiple possible futures. They ask "what if" questions and develop contingency plans for different scenarios. This preparation gives them massive advantages when unexpected situations arise because they've already thought through how to respond. Great decision-makers understand the concept of opportunity cost. Every decision you make means saying no to other options, and strategic thinkers always consider what they're giving up when they choose a particular path. They don't just evaluate whether an option is good. They evaluate whether it's the best option available given their resources and objectives. Speed of decision-making is crucial in competitive situations. While others are still gathering information and analyzing options, strategic thinkers make decisions quickly and adjust as they go. They understand that in most situations, a good decision made quickly is better than a perfect decision made too late. They gather enough information to make an informed choice, but they don't get trapped in analysis paralysis. Strategic thinkers also understand the power of timing. They know that doing the right thing at the wrong time often produces the wrong results. They develop a sense for when to act aggressively and when to be patient, when to push forward and when to pull back, when to take risks and when to play it safe. This timing sense comes from understanding cycles, momentum, and the natural rhythm of competitive situations. The ability to think several moves ahead is what separates good decision-makers from great ones. Like chess masters who can see multiple moves into the future, strategic thinkers consider the second and third-order consequences of their decisions. They ask not just, "What will happen if I do this?" but "What will happen After that happens, and after that happens. This long-term thinking prevents short-term decisions that create long-term problems. Pattern recognition is another crucial strategic thinking skill. The more situations you encounter and analyze, the better you become at recognizing patterns and applying lessons from one situation to another. Strategic thinkers are always asking, "What does this remind me of?" And "How is this similar to something I've dealt with before?" This allows them to leverage past experience to make better current decisions. Risk assessment and management is central to strategic decision-making. Every decision involves risk, but strategic thinkers don't try to avoid risk. They try to manage it intelligently. They identify potential risks, assess their probability and impact, and develop strategies to minimize downside while maximizing upside. They understand that the biggest risk is often not taking any risk at all. Strategic thinkers also master the art of resource allocation. They understand that time, energy, attention, and money are all limited resources, and they make deliberate choices about how to invest these resources for maximum return. They're willing to say no to good opportunities so they can say yes to great ones. They focus their resources on their highest leverage activities and eliminate or delegate everything else. Finally, strategic thinking requires intellectual humility. Strategic thinkers know what they don't know and aren't afraid to admit it. They seek out diverse perspectives, challenge their own assumptions, and are willing to change their minds when presented with better information. They understand that being right is more important than being consistent, and they're always learning and adapting their thinking. The combination of these strategic thinking skills creates what I call strategic intuition, the ability to quickly assess complex situations and identify the best course of action. This intuition isn't magic. It's the result of training your mind to think systematically and strategically until these patterns become automatic. Chapter 4. Mastering emotional control. Your emotions are either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. There's no middle ground. When you master your emotions, they become a source of power, motivation, and insight. When your emotions master you, they become a source of poor decisions, wasted energy, and missed opportunities. Winners understand that emotional control isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about channeling them strategically. The first thing you must understand about emotions is that they're information, not instructions. Your emotions tell you something about your current state, your needs, your values, and your environment. But they don't tell you what to do. Most people confuse feeling something with having to act on that feeling. They feel angry, so they lash out. They feel afraid, so they avoid. They feel discouraged, so they quit. Winners feel the same emotions, but they choose their response based on strategy, not feeling. Emotional awareness is the foundation of emotional control. You can't manage what you don't recognize. Most people are emotionally unconscious, reacting to situations without even realizing what they're feeling or why. Winners develop the ability to step back and observe their emotions objectively. They notice when anger is building, when fear is creeping in, when frustration is mounting, and they address these emotions before they become problematic. The key to emotional awareness is creating space between stimulus and response. When something happens that triggers an emotional reaction, instead of immediately reacting, you pause. In that pause, you ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? What does this emotion tell me? How should I respond to achieve my objectives? This simple pause can be the difference between emotional reaction and strategic response. Understanding the physiology of emotions gives you tremendous power over them. Every emotion has a physical component. Changes in breathing, heart rate, muscle tension, posture, and facial expression. By controlling the physical component, you can influence the emotional component. When you feel anger building, you can use controlled breathing to reduce its intensity. When you feel fear creeping in, you can change your posture to create confidence. When you feel discouraged, you can use movement to generate energy. Reframing is one of the most powerful tools for emotional control. This involves consciously changing the meaning you attach to situations. Instead of seeing a setback as proof that you're failing, you reframe it as information about what to adjust. Instead of seeing criticism as an attack, you reframe it as feedback for improvement. Instead of seeing pressure as a threat, you reframe it as an opportunity to excel. The situation doesn't change, but your emotional response to it does. You must also learn to separate your identity from your emotions. You are not your emotions. You have emotions, but they don't define you. When you feel angry, you don't say, I am angry. You say, I'm experiencing anger. This subtle shift in language creates psychological distance between you and your emotions, making them easier to manage. You become the observer of your emotions, rather than being consumed by them. Emotional regulation also requires understanding the difference between primary and secondary emotions. Primary emotions are your immediate, instinctive reactions to situations. Secondary emotions are your reactions to your primary emotions. For example, you might feel afraid, primary emotion, and then feel ashamed about feeling afraid, secondary emotion. Often, the secondary emotions cause more problems than the primary ones. Winners acknowledge their primary emotions without judgment and don't create additional suffering through secondary emotions. The concept of emotional granularity is crucial for advanced emotional control. Instead of just recognizing that you feel bad or good, you develop the ability to identify specific emotions with precision. Are you frustrated, disappointed, or discouraged? Are you excited, confident, or determined? The more precisely you can identify what you're feeling, the more effectively you can address it. Emotional control also involves strategic emotional expression. This doesn't mean being fake or manipulative. It means choosing when and how to express your emotions based on what will be most effective in each situation. Sometimes expressing anger is appropriate and powerful. Sometimes containing it is more strategic. Sometimes showing vulnerability creates connection. Sometimes displaying strength commands respect. Winners make these choices consciously, not reactively. You must develop what I call emotional stamina, the ability to maintain emotional control over extended periods of high stress. Just like physical stamina, emotional stamina can be developed through progressive training. You start by maintaining control in mildly challenging situations. Then gradually work up to more intense scenarios. You practice staying calm under pressure until it becomes your default state. Emotional contagion is another crucial concept to understand. Emotions are contagious. You catch them from other people, and other people catch them from you. Winners are conscious of the emotional states of people around them and choose whether to be influenced by those states. They also understand that their emotional state influences others, so they choose their emotions strategically to create the environment they want. Recovery from emotional disruption is just as important as prevention. When you do lose emotional control, and everyone does sometimes, the key is how quickly you can recover and get back to an optimal state. Winners have recovery protocols they use to reset their emotional state quickly. This might involve breathing exercises, physical movement, mental reframing, or other techniques that help them return to peak performance state. The ultimate goal of emotional mastery is what I call emotional Aikido, the ability to use other people's emotions against them in a strategic way. When someone is angry, you remain calm and use their emotional reactivity to your advantage. When someone is afraid, you display confidence and become the leader they need. When someone is discouraged, you provide hope and inspiration. You become unshakable, while others are emotional, which gives you tremendous influence and control in any situation. Chapter 5. Building Unshakable Confidence. Confidence is not a personality trait you're born with or without. It's a skill you develop, a muscle you build, a choice you make every single day. Real confidence isn't about feeling good about yourself all the time. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, you have the ability to handle it, learn from it, and ultimately succeed because of it. Most people confuse confidence with arrogance or with positive thinking. But real confidence is completely different. Arrogance is based on the illusion of superiority over others. Positive thinking is based on hoping for the best. True confidence is based on evidence. Evidence of your ability to overcome challenges, to learn from failures, to persist through difficulties, and to find ways to win even when the odds are against you. The foundation of unshakable confidence is competence. You cannot have lasting confidence in areas where you lack competence. This is why feel-good confidence-building techniques that ignore skill development are ultimately ineffective. Real confidence comes from knowing that you've done the work, put in the hours, developed the skills, and prepared thoroughly for the challenges you'll face. But competence alone isn't enough. You must also develop what I call evidence files, mental collections of proof that you can succeed in challenging situations. Every time you overcome an obstacle, solve a difficult problem, or achieve something you weren't sure you could achieve, you add that experience to your evidence file. Over time, this file becomes a powerful resource you can draw on when facing new challenges. Confidence building requires progressive challenge. You can't build real confidence by staying in your comfort zone and doing only things you're already good at. You must systematically expose yourself to situations that stretch your abilities, force you to grow, and prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. Start with challenges that are difficult but achievable. Then gradually increase the difficulty as your confidence grows. The internal dialogue you maintain with yourself is crucial for confidence development. Most people have a harsh inner critic that constantly points out their flaws mistakes, and limitations. Champions develop an inner coach that acknowledges problems but focuses on solutions, recognizes mistakes but emphasizes learning, and sees limitations as opportunities for growth. You must become your own best supporter, not your own worst enemy. Confidence also requires learning to separate your worth from your performance. Your value as a person is not determined by whether you succeed or fail in any particular situation. You are inherently valuable regardless of outcomes. This understanding allows you to take risks, try new things, and push yourself without your ego being on the line. You can fail without being a failure. Body language and physiology play a massive role in confidence. The way you carry yourself doesn't just reflect how you feel. It influences how you feel. When you stand tall, make eye contact, speak clearly, and move with purpose, you not only appear more confident to others, you actually feel more confident yourself. Your physiology sends signals to your brain about your state, so you must consciously choose confident physiology even when you don't feel confident initially. Preparation is confidence. The more thoroughly you prepare for any situation, the more confident you'll feel going into it. This preparation goes beyond just knowing what you need to do. It includes preparing for potential obstacles, developing contingency plans, practicing key skills until they're automatic, and mentally rehearsing successful performance. When you know you've prepared as thoroughly as possible, confidence becomes natural. Confident people focus on what they can control rather than what they can't. They don't waste mental energy worrying about factors outside their influence. Instead, they invest all their energy in maximizing their performance in areas they can control. This focus on controllables eliminates anxiety and creates a sense of empowerment that fuels confidence. Learning to embrace discomfort is essential for building lasting confidence. Comfort is the enemy of growth, and growth is the foundation of confidence. You must train yourself to see discomfort as a signal that you're expanding your capabilities rather than as something to avoid. When you become comfortable being uncomfortable, you become confident in your ability to handle whatever life throws at you. Confidence requires learning from failure rather than being defeated by it. Everyone fails, but confident people interpret failure differently than insecure people. They see failure as feedback, as information about what doesn't work, as a necessary step in the learning process. They extract lessons from every failure and use those lessons to improve their future performance. This relationship with failure transforms it from something that destroys confidence into something that builds it. Visualization is a powerful tool for confidence building, but it must be done correctly. Don't just visualize yourself succeeding easily. Visualize yourself succeeding despite difficulties. See yourself handling unexpected challenges, recovering from mistakes, and finding ways to win, even when things don't go according to plan. This type of visualization builds deep confidence because it prepares you for reality rather than fantasy. Confident people also understand the power of decisive action. Indecision breeds doubt, while decision breeds confidence. Even when you're not completely sure of the best course of action, making a decision and moving forward builds confidence in your ability to handle uncertain situations. You can always adjust your course as you get more information, but you can't build confidence by remaining paralyzed in indecision. Finally, true confidence requires authenticity. You cannot sustain confidence that's based on pretending to be someone you're not. Real confidence comes from knowing who you are, accepting yourself completely, and committing to becoming the best version of yourself. This authentic confidence is unshakable because it's not dependent on external validation or comparison with others. The goal is to develop what I call quiet confidence, a deep internal knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way. This confidence doesn't need to be loud or showy. It doesn't need external validation. It's simply the rock-solid belief that no matter what happens, you have the resources, skills, and determination to find a way through, around, or over any obstacle in your path. Chapter 6. The Art of Resilience and Rapid Recovery. Resilience is not about how hard you can get hit. Everyone gets hit hard in life. Resilience is about how fast you can get back up, learn from what happened, and come back stronger than before. It's about developing an internal shock absorption system that allows you to handle any setback without losing your momentum toward your goals. Most people think resilience is something you either have or you don't. But that's completely wrong. Resilience is a skill set that can be developed, strengthened, and mastered. It's about training your mind to bounce back faster and stronger from every adversity, disappointment, and failure you encounter. The faster you can recover from setbacks, the more attempts you get at success. And the more attempts you get, the more likely you are to win. The foundation of resilience is understanding that setbacks are not permanent, personal, or pervasive. When something goes wrong, most people make it bigger than it is. They think it means they're a failure, that they'll never succeed, that everything is falling apart. Resilient people understand that setbacks are temporary situations that provide valuable information about what needs to be adjusted. Mental reframing is your most powerful tool for rapid recovery. The story you tell yourself about what happened determines how quickly you recover from it. If you tell yourself that a failure means you're not good enough, you'll be devastated. If you tell yourself that a failure is market research for your next attempt, you'll be energized. Same event, different story, completely different emotional impact. Resilient people have what I call a recovery protocol. Has a systematic process they use to bounce back from any setback. First, they allow themselves to feel the disappointment for a specific, limited amount of time. They don't pretend it doesn't hurt, but they also don't wallow in it indefinitely. They feel it, acknowledge it, then move on. Second, they extract the lessons. They ask what went wrong, what they can learn, and what they'll do differently next time. Third, they identify the next action they can take to move forward. They don't get stuck in analysis. They get back into action. The concept of anti-fragility is crucial for advanced resilience. This goes beyond just bouncing back to where you were before. Anti-fragile people use setbacks to become stronger than they were before the setback occurred. They don't just recover, they upgrade. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to develop new capabilities, stronger mental muscles, and better strategies. Physical resilience supports mental resilience. Your body and mind are connected, and when your body is strong and healthy, your mind is more resilient. Regular exercise, proper nutrition, adequate sleep, and stress management practices all contribute to your ability to handle adversity. You can't separate physical and mental toughness. They reinforce each other. Resilient people also understand the power of perspective. They zoom out and see setbacks in the context of their entire life and career. What seems devastating in the moment often becomes insignificant when viewed from a broader perspective. They ask themselves, will this matter in 5 years? And usually find that the answer is no. This perspective allows them to maintain emotional equilibrium during difficult times. Support systems are crucial for resilience, but not in the way most people think. Resilient people don't surround themselves with people who will comfort them and tell them everything will be okay. They surround themselves with people who will challenge them to grow from the experience, who will hold them accountable for taking productive action, and who will remind them of their capability to overcome challenges. The speed of your recovery is directly related to how quickly you can shift from victim mentality to ownership mentality. As long as you're focused on what was done to you, you remain powerless. The moment you shift to focusing on what you can do about it, you regain your power. Resilient people make this shift automatically and immediately. Resilience also requires developing emotional calluses. Just like your hands develop calluses when you do physical work, your emotions can develop calluses when you expose them to controlled adversity. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally numb. It means becoming emotionally strong. You deliberately expose yourself to small setbacks and disappointments so that when big ones come, you're already mentally prepared to handle them. Pattern recognition is another key component of resilience. The more setbacks you experience and recover from, the better you become at recognizing that this too shall pass. You develop confidence in your ability to handle adversity because you have evidence from past experience that you can do it. This evidence makes each subsequent setback easier to handle. Resilient people also practice what I call preemptive recovery. They don't wait for setbacks to happen before they prepare for them. They regularly visualize themselves handling challenges successfully. They develop contingency plans for potential problems, and they build the mental and emotional resources they'll need when difficulties arise. This preparation makes actual recovery much faster and more effective. The concept of controlled optimism is crucial for resilience. This isn't blind positivity that ignores reality. It's strategic optimism that acknowledges problems while maintaining confidence in your ability to solve them. You see setbacks clearly and honestly, but you also maintain unwavering belief in your ability to overcome them and achieve your goals despite them. Finally, resilience requires understanding that your response to adversity defines you more than the adversity itself. Everyone faces challenges, but not everyone responds to them in ways that build character and strength. How you handle setbacks reveals who you really are and determines who you'll become. Each challenge is an opportunity to prove to yourself that you're stronger than you think. Chapter 7. Laser focus and mental clarity. In a world full of distractions, the ability to focus with laser-like intensity on what matters most is a superpower. While everyone else is scattered, reactive, and overwhelmed, focused people accomplish more in a day than most people accomplish in a week. Focus isn't just about productivity. It's about power. When you can direct all your mental energy toward a single objective, you become unstoppable. The first thing you must understand about focus is that it's not about doing more things, it's about doing fewer things better. Most people confuse being busy with being productive. They multitask. They switch between projects. They respond to every notification and interruption. They think this makes them more efficient, but it actually makes them less effective. Your brain can only focus on one thing at a time, and every time you switch focus, there's a cognitive cost. True focus requires ruthless elimination. Before you can focus on what matters, you must eliminate what doesn't matter. This means saying no to good opportunities, so you can say yes to great ones. It means cutting activities that don't directly contribute to your most important goals. It means creating boundaries around your time, attention, and energy. Most people are afraid to eliminate options because they think it limits their possibilities. But the opposite is true. Elimination creates the space necessary for mastery. The foundation of laser focus is clarity of purpose. You cannot focus effectively if you're not crystal clear about what you're trying to achieve and why it matters. Vague goals create scattered attention. Specific, compelling objectives create natural focus. When you know exactly what you want and why you want it, your mind automatically filters out distractions and zeroes in on what's relevant. Attention management is more important than time management. You can manage your time perfectly, but if your attention is scattered, you won't accomplish anything meaningful. Focused people treat their attention like their most valuable resource. They're selective about what they expose their minds to. They create environments that support concentration, and they develop rituals that help them enter and maintain states of deep focus. The concept of flow state is crucial for peak focus. Flow is that state where you're so absorbed in what you're doing that everything else disappears. Time seems to stop, self-consciousness vanishes, and you perform at levels you didn't know were possible. Flow doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you create the right conditions, clear goals, immediate feedback, and a balance between challenge and skill level. Single tasking is a core discipline for developing laser focus. This means doing one thing at a time with complete attention and commitment. When you're writing, you're only writing. When you're in a meeting, you're only in that meeting. When you're exercising, you're only exercising. This seems simple, but it's incredibly difficult in our hyper-connected world. Single tasking requires discipline, but it produces extraordinary results. Environmental design is crucial for maintaining focus. Your environment either supports concentration or destroys it. Focused people design their environment to minimize distractions and maximize concentration. This might mean having a dedicated workspace, using website blockers during work time, keeping phones in another room, or using noise-canceling headphones. Small environmental changes can have massive impacts on your ability to focus. The Pomodoro technique is a powerful tool for building focus stamina. Just like physical stamina, focus stamina can be developed through progressive training. Start with short periods of intense focus, then gradually increase the duration. Use a timer to create urgency and clear boundaries. Work for 25 minutes with complete focus. Then, take a 5-minute break. This rhythm trains your brain to sustain attention for longer periods. Mental clarity requires regular mind-clearing practices. Your mind accumulates mental clutter throughout the day. Worries, distractions, random thoughts, emotional residue from various experiences. This clutter clouds your thinking and reduces your ability to focus. Meditation, journaling, or simple breathing exercises can clear this mental static and restore clarity. The art of deep work is essential for achieving breakthrough results. Deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks. It's becoming increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. While others are constantly interrupted and switching between shallow tasks, people who can do deep work are accomplishing things that create tremendous value and competitive advantage. Focus also requires learning to say no to your own impulses. Your brain is constantly generating thoughts, ideas, and urges that can derail your concentration. The ability to notice these mental interruptions without being controlled by them is crucial for maintaining focus. You acknowledge the thought, but you don't act on it until you've completed your current focus session. Batch processing is another powerful focus technique. Instead of handling similar tasks throughout the day, you batch them into specific time blocks. Check email twice a day instead of constantly. Make all your phone calls during a designated hour. Handle administrative tasks in one focused session. This reduces context switching and allows you to maintain deeper focus on your most important work. The concept of focus anchors helps you quickly enter states of concentration. These are specific cues that signal to your brain that it's time to focus. It might be a particular piece of music, a specific location, a ritual like making coffee, or even a physical object you associate with focused work. Over time, these anchors become triggers that automatically shift your brain into focus mode. Recovery and restoration are crucial for maintaining focus over time. Just like muscles need rest to grow stronger, your attention needs rest to maintain its power. This means taking real breaks where you don't consume information or stimulation. It means getting adequate sleep, spending time in nature, and engaging in activities that restore rather than drain your mental energy. Finally, focused people understand that focus is not about perfection. It's about direction. You don't need to eliminate every distraction or maintain perfect concentration every moment. You just need to consistently direct the majority of your attention toward what matters most. Over time, this consistent direction produces extraordinary results that scattered attention could never achieve. Chapter 8. Creating unstoppable momentum. Momentum is the hidden force that separates those who achieve their goals from those who don't. It's what transforms good intentions into powerful results, what turns scattered effort into focused progress, what makes the impossible seem inevitable. When you have momentum, everything becomes easier. When you lack momentum, everything becomes harder. Learning to create and maintain momentum is one of the most important skills you can develop. Most people think momentum happens to them, but champions know that momentum is something you create deliberately. It doesn't come from luck or circumstances. It comes from consistent action aligned with clear purpose. Every day, you either build momentum or lose momentum. There's no neutral. Even when you think you're standing still, you're actually moving backward, because the world keeps moving forward. The foundation of momentum is taking action before you feel ready. Most people wait until they have all the information, until conditions are perfect, until they feel confident, until they're sure they'll succeed. But momentum doesn't come from perfect conditions. It comes from imperfect action. The act of moving forward, even in small ways, creates energy that propels you toward your goals. Starting is always the hardest part, because you're working against inertia. An object at rest tends to stay at rest, and a person at rest tends to stay at rest. But once you overcome that initial resistance and start moving, continuing becomes much easier. This is why the first step is so crucial. It doesn't have to be a big step. It just has to be a real step. that moves you from stillness to motion. Consistency is the engine of momentum. Small actions taken consistently over time create massive results. Most people underestimate the power of consistency because they're looking for dramatic breakthroughs and overnight success. But momentum builds gradually through daily discipline. Every day you take action toward your goals, you add another layer to your momentum. Every day you skip, you subtract from it. The concept of minimum viable progress is crucial for building momentum when motivation is low. On days when you don't feel like doing much, commit to doing the smallest possible action that still counts as progress. Write one paragraph instead of a whole page. Exercise for 5 minutes instead of an hour. Make one phone call instead of 10. These minimum actions maintain momentum when you can't do more, and often they lead to doing more than you planned. Momentum requires measuring progress, not just outcomes. Most people only measure end results, but results often lag behind effort. You might be making tremendous progress without seeing results yet. And if you only measure results, you'll get discouraged and stop. Instead, measure the actions you're taking, the habits you're building, the skills you're developing. These leading indicators show you that momentum is building even before results appear. Quick wins are jet fuel for momentum. While you're working toward big goals, you need to create opportunities for smaller victories along the way. These wins create positive emotional energy that propels you forward and reinforces your belief that bigger wins are possible. Celebrate these quick wins. Acknowledge your progress and use the positive energy to tackle bigger challenges. Environmental momentum is just as important as personal momentum. Your environment either supports your goals or works against them. Create an environment where the right actions are easy and the wrong actions are difficult. If you want to eat healthier, stock your kitchen with healthy food and remove junk food. If you want to exercise more, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Your environment should make momentum automatic rather than forced. The compound effect is what makes momentum so powerful over time. Small improvements don't just add up, they multiply. A 1% improvement every day doesn't just make you 1% better over time. It makes you 37 times better over a year. This exponential growth is why people with momentum seem to achieve results that are out of proportion to their efforts. Momentum requires learning to push through resistance points. There will be times when you don't feel like continuing, when obstacles appear, when motivation wanes. These resistance points are where most people stop, but they're also where momentum is won or lost. Champions understand that resistance is normal and temporary. They push through it, not because they feel like it, but because they know that's where momentum lives. Social momentum amplifies individual momentum. Surround yourself with people who are also building momentum toward their goals. Their energy and commitment will reinforce yours. Share your goals with others who will hold you accountable. Join communities of people who are moving in the same direction. The momentum of the group lifts everyone higher than they could go alone. The concept of momentum banking is crucial for maintaining forward progress during difficult times. When momentum is strong, you do extra work and build reserves. You write extra content, you make extra sales calls, you put in extra training sessions. These reserves carry you through the inevitable periods when momentum slows down. You're always working either to build momentum or to bank it for future use. Tracking momentum creates awareness and motivation. Keep a visual record of your progress, whether it's a simple chart, a journal, or a digital tracker. Seeing your momentum represented visually reinforces your progress and motivates you to continue. It also helps you identify when momentum is slowing so you can take corrective action before it stops completely. Momentum also requires strategic rest and recovery. Just like a car engine, you can't run at full speed all the time without breaking down. Build recovery periods into your momentum strategy. This might mean taking one day off per week, taking a vacation every quarter, or simply building buffer time into your daily schedule. Strategic rest prevents burnout and ensures sustainable momentum. Finally, understand that momentum feeds on itself. The more you have, the more you get. Success creates confidence, which creates more action, which creates more success. This is why it's so important to start building momentum immediately, even if you're starting small. Once the momentum wheel starts turning, it becomes easier and easier to keep it spinning. Chapter 9. Reading People and Situations. The ability to accurately read people and situations gives you a massive advantage in every area of life. While others are operating on assumptions and guesswork, you're operating on intelligence and insight. You can anticipate what people will do before they do it. You can identify opportunities that others miss, and you can avoid threats that others don't see coming. This skill can be the difference between success and failure in crucial moments. Most people are terrible at reading situations because they see what they want to see rather than what's actually there. They project their own thoughts, feelings, and motivations onto others. They make assumptions based on limited information. They let their emotions cloud their judgment. Accurate situation reading requires you to set aside your biases, expectations, and emotions and see reality as it actually is. The foundation of reading people is understanding that everyone has both visible and hidden agendas. What people say they want and what they actually want are often different things. What they claim motivates them and what actually motivates them are often different things. Your job is to look beyond the surface presentation and identify the real drivers, the real fears, the real desires that are influencing their behavior. Body language provides more accurate information than words because it's harder to control consciously. People can lie with their words, but their bodies often tell the truth. Learn to read micro-expressions, posture changes, vocal tone variations, and nervous habits. These physical tells reveal emotional states that people are trying to hide or aren't even aware they're experiencing. Context is crucial for accurate people reading. The same behavior can mean completely different things in different situations. Someone who appears confident in a familiar environment might be insecure in an unfamiliar one. Someone who seems relaxed in a low-stakes situation might become tense when pressure increases. Always consider the context when interpreting behavior. Listening skills are more important than observation skills for reading people. Most people spend conversations waiting for their turn to talk rather than really listening to what the other person is saying and not saying. Listen for what's emphasized, what's avoided, what's repeated, what creates emotional responses. The gaps in what people say are often more revealing than what they actually say. Pattern recognition is essential for accurate situation reading. People are creatures of habit, and understanding someone's patterns allows you to predict their future behavior. How do they typically respond to stress? What motivates them to take action? What causes them to shut down? Once you identify these patterns, you can anticipate how they'll behave in new situations. The concept of social proof is crucial for reading group dynamics. People don't just act based on their individual desires. They act based on what they perceive others in their group expect or approve of. Understanding the social dynamics at play in any situation helps you predict how individuals will behave and how to influence those behaviors effectively. Energy reading is an advanced skill that goes beyond watching and listening. Every person and every situation has an energy signature, a combination of tension, excitement, fear, confidence, or other emotional states that you can sense if you're paying attention. This energy often reveals more about what's really happening than words or even body language. Understanding personal motivators is key to predicting behavior. Every person is driven by a unique combination of desires: recognition, security, achievement, connection, autonomy, purpose, excitement, or control. When you identify what primarily motivates someone, you can predict how they'll respond to different situations and what it will take to influence them. The timing of observations is crucial for accuracy. People behave differently when they think they're being watched versus when they think they're not. They act differently at the beginning of interactions versus the end. They respond differently when they're fresh versus when they're tired. Pay attention to these timing factors to get a more complete picture. Cultural and individual filters affect how people communicate and behave. What seems rude in one culture is normal in another. What appears confident to one person appears arrogant to another. Understanding these filters helps you interpret behavior more accurately and avoid misunderstandings that could damage relationships or opportunities. Stress reveals character in ways that normal circumstances don't. How people behave when everything is going well tells you very little about who they really are. How they behave when they're under pressure, facing deadlines, dealing with conflicts, or experiencing setbacks reveals their true character. Pay special attention to behavior during stressful situations. The concept of baseline behavior is essential for detecting changes that signal important information. Everyone has normal patterns of behavior, speech, and emotional expression. When someone deviates significantly from their baseline, it usually means something important is happening. They might be lying, hiding something, experiencing stress, or reacting to changed circumstances. Question strategies can reveal more than direct observation. The right questions, asked in the right way, can uncover motivations, concerns, and intentions that wouldn't be visible otherwise. Learn to ask open-ended questions that encourage people to reveal their thinking, hypothetical questions that expose values, and follow-up questions that dig deeper into important topics. Situation reading also requires understanding power dynamics. Who has real influence in the situation? Who are the decision-makers? Who are the gatekeepers? Who has something to gain or lose based on different outcomes? Understanding these dynamics helps you navigate situations more effectively and direct your efforts toward the people who actually matter. Finally, remember that reading people and situations is a skill that improves with practice. The more situations you analyze, the more patterns you'll recognize. The more people you observe, the better you'll become at spotting tells and understanding motivations. Like any skill, it requires deliberate practice and continuous refinement. But the payoff in terms of improved relationships, better decisions, and greater success is enormous. Chapter 10. Adaptability and mental flexibility. The world is changing faster than ever before, and the ability to adapt quickly to new situations, new information, and new challenges is becoming the ultimate competitive advantage. While others are clinging to outdated strategies and rigid thinking patterns, adaptable people are thriving by constantly evolving their approach based on what the situation requires. Adaptability isn't about having no principles. It's about having the intelligence to apply your principles flexibly. Most people resist change because it threatens their sense of security and control. They invest so much in their current way of doing things that they can't imagine doing things differently. They confuse their methods with their identity, their strategies with their values, their current approach with their ultimate purpose. This rigidity becomes a liability in a rapidly changing world where yesterday's solutions may not work for today's problems. The foundation of adaptability is separating your identity from your methods. Your core values, your ultimate purpose, and your fundamental character should remain constant, but your strategies, your tactics, and your methods should be fluid and responsive to changing circumstances. You're not what you do, you're why you do it. This distinction gives you the freedom to change how you operate without losing who you are. Mental flexibility requires developing comfort with uncertainty and ambiguity. Rigid people need everything to be clear, predictable, and well-defined before they can function effectively. Adaptable people can operate effectively even when the situation is unclear, the future is uncertain, and the optimal strategy isn't obvious. They make decisions with incomplete information and adjust as more information becomes available. The concept of anti-fragility is crucial for advanced adaptability. This goes beyond just surviving change or recovering from disruption. Anti-fragile people actually become stronger as a result of challenges and chaos. They use disruption as an opportunity to eliminate what isn't working, to develop new capabilities, and to gain competitive advantages that weren't possible in stable conditions. Scenario thinking is essential for developing adaptability. Instead of planning for one expected future, adaptable people consider multiple possible futures and develop flexible strategies that can work in various scenarios. They ask "what if" questions and prepare contingency plans. This preparation makes them ready to pivot quickly when circumstances change. Learning agility is more important than knowledge accumulation. In a rapidly changing world, what you know becomes obsolete quickly, but your ability to learn new things quickly remains valuable. Adaptable people are learning machines. They consume new information efficiently. They experiment with new approaches readily, and they update their beliefs based on new evidence. The ability to kill your darlings is crucial for adaptability. This means being willing to abandon strategies, projects, or approaches that you've invested heavily in when they're no longer effective. Most people fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. They continue investing in failing approaches because they've already invested so much. Adaptable people cut their losses quickly and redirect their energy toward what's working. Feedback loops are essential for rapid adaptation. The faster you can get feedback on your actions, the faster you can adjust your approach. Adaptable people create systems that give them quick, accurate feedback about what's working and what isn't. They don't wait for quarterly reviews or annual assessments to make adjustments. Pattern recognition across different domains enhances adaptability. When you can recognize that a pattern from one area of life applies to a completely different area, you can adapt solutions and strategies much more quickly. This cross-domain thinking allows you to apply lessons from business to relationships, from sports to academics, from past experiences to current challenges. The concept of minimum viable adaptation is helpful when change seems overwhelming. You don't need to transform everything at once. Start with the smallest possible adaptation that moves you in the right direction. Then build from there. This reduces resistance and makes change feel manageable while still creating forward progress. Emotional adaptability is just as important as strategic adaptability. Different situations require different emotional states for optimal performance. Sometimes you need to be aggressive, sometimes diplomatic. Sometimes you need to be patient, sometimes urgent. Sometimes you need to be collaborative, sometimes independent. Adaptable people can shift their emotional state to match what the situation requires. Network adaptability involves building relationships across different domains, industries, and perspectives. Rigid people tend to surround themselves with others who think and act like them. Adaptable people build diverse networks that expose them to different viewpoints, different approaches, and different opportunities. This diversity makes them more responsive to changing conditions. The timing of adaptation is crucial. Adapting too early wastes resources on changes that may not be necessary. Adapting too late means you're always playing catch-up. Adaptable people develop a sense for when change is needed and when stability is more important. They neither resist all change nor chase every trend. Cognitive flexibility allows you to switch between different thinking modes as needed. Sometimes you need to think big picture. Sometimes you need to focus on details. Sometimes you need to be creative. Sometimes you need to be analytical. Sometimes you need to be cautious. Sometimes you need to be bold. Mental flexibility means having access to all these thinking modes and knowing when to use each one. Finally, remember that adaptability is not about being wishy-washy or lacking convictions. It's about being intelligent enough to recognize when circumstances have changed enough to require a different approach. It's about having the courage to change what isn't working and the wisdom to keep what is. In a world of constant change, adaptability isn't just an advantage. It's a survival skill. Chapter 11. The Psychology of Influence and Persuasion. Influence is not manipulation. Manipulation seeks to benefit the influencer at the expense of others. True influence creates win-win situations where everyone benefits. The ability to influence others ethically and effectively is one of the most valuable skills you can develop because virtually every goal you have will require the cooperation, support, or action of other people. Most people think influence is about being pushy, aggressive, or manipulative. But real influence is exactly the opposite. It's about understanding what others want and need, then helping them see how your proposal serves their interests. It's about building trust, creating value, and aligning your objectives with theirs. The most influential people are often the ones who seem to be doing the least obvious persuading. The foundation of influence is credibility. People must believe that you're competent, trustworthy, and genuinely interested in their well-being before they'll be influenced by you. Credibility is built through consistent actions over time, through demonstrating expertise in your field, and through following through on your commitments. Without credibility, all other influence techniques are worthless. Understanding human psychology is crucial for ethical influence. People are not purely rational decision-makers. They make decisions based on emotions and then justify those decisions with logic. They're influenced by social proof, by authority, by scarcity, by reciprocity, and by consistency. When you understand these psychological principles, you can present your ideas in ways that naturally align with how people actually think and decide. The principle of reciprocity is one of the most powerful influence tools. People feel obligated to return favors and give back to those who have given to them. But this only works if you give first, without any obvious expectation of return. When you provide value, solve problems, or help others achieve their goals without asking for anything in return, you create a psychological debt that people naturally want to repay. Social proof is another fundamental influence principle. People look to others to determine appropriate behavior, especially in uncertain situations. When people see that others like them have made certain decisions or taken certain actions, they're much more likely to do the same. This is why testimonials, case studies, and success stories are so effective for influence. Authority influences people because we're conditioned from childhood to defer to legitimate authority figures. But authority doesn't just come from titles or positions. It comes from demonstrated expertise, knowledge, and results. You can build authority by sharing valuable insights, by solving difficult problems, by making accurate predictions, and by consistently delivering superior results. The principle of commitment and consistency works because people want to appear consistent with their previous statements and actions. When someone makes a commitment, especially a public one, they feel psychological pressure to follow through. This is why getting small commitments first makes larger commitments easier to obtain later. Each yes makes the next yes more likely. Scarcity influences people because we value things more when they're rare or difficult to obtain. This isn't about creating false scarcity. It's about helping people understand the real limitations, deadlines, or unique aspects of your opportunity. When something is genuinely limited or time-sensitive, communicating that scarcity ethically can motivate action. The liking principle states that people are more easily influenced by those they like. People like others who are similar to them, who complement them genuinely, who share their values, and who show genuine interest in them as people. Building rapport and personal connection makes influence much easier and more effective. Framing is crucial for influence because the way you present information determines how it's received. The same facts can be presented in ways that emphasize benefits or risks, gains or losses, opportunities or threats. How you frame your message determines whether people see it as attractive or unattractive, urgent or casual, important or trivial. The contrast principle affects how people evaluate options. When you present an expensive option first, a moderately priced option seems reasonable by comparison. When you present a difficult request first, a smaller request seems easy. Understanding contrast allows you to position your proposals in ways that make them seem more attractive. Storytelling is one of the most powerful influence tools because stories bypass rational resistance and speak directly to emotions. Facts tell, but stories sell. When you can illustrate your point with a compelling story that people can relate to, you're much more likely to influence their thinking and behavior. Stories make abstract concepts concrete and memorable. Questions are often more influential than statements because they engage people's minds and lead them to their own conclusions. When people feel like they've discovered something themselves rather than being told what to think, they're much more committed to that conclusion. Strategic questioning can guide people to the realizations you want them to have. Timing is crucial for influence. The same message delivered at different times can have completely different effects. People are more receptive to certain ideas when they're in certain emotional states, when they've just experienced certain events, or when external circumstances make your proposal more relevant or urgent. Understanding resistance is essential for effective influence. When people resist your ideas, it's usually because they perceive some threat to their autonomy, their identity, their security, or their current situation. Instead of pushing harder when you encounter resistance, you need to understand what's driving that resistance and address the underlying concerns. The concept of influence Aikido involves using the other person's energy and momentum rather than opposing it directly. Instead of arguing against their position, you acknowledge their concerns and redirect their energy toward your objectives. This approach reduces resistance and makes people feel heard and respected. Building consensus is often more effective than trying to influence individuals one at a time. When you can get key influencers in a group on your side first, they'll help influence others. When you can frame your proposal as something the group wants rather than something you want, resistance decreases dramatically. Influence also requires patience and persistence. Most people give up too quickly when they don't get immediate agreement. Effective influence often requires multiple conversations, different approaches, and consistent follow-up. You plant seeds in one conversation that bloom in future interactions. Finally, remember that the most sustainable influence comes from actually helping people get what they want. When your influence leads to positive outcomes for others, they'll seek out your influence in the future. When your influence consistently benefits only yourself, people learn to resist it. True influence is about creating value for others while achieving your own objectives. Chapter 12. Developing mental toughness in competition. Competition reveals who you really are. When you're competing against others who want the same thing you want, when the stakes are high and the pressure is intense, all pretense falls away and your true character emerges. Mental toughness in competition isn't just about handling pressure. It's about thriving under pressure and performing your best when it matters most. The first thing you must understand about competition is that you're never really competing against others. You're competing against their best effort while you're giving your best effort. The external competition is just the catalyst that brings out your internal competition. The real battle is between the version of you that gives everything and the version of you that holds back. Between the you that persists and the you that quits. Competitive mental toughness starts with loving the battle more than you love the victory. Winners don't just want to win, they want to compete. They want to test themselves, to push their limits, to see what they're capable of when everything is on the line. They understand that the victory is just the result, but the battle is where growth happens, where character is forged, where you discover what you're really made of. The competitor's mindset is fundamentally different from the recreational mindset. Recreational participants play until they get tired, bored, or uncomfortable. Competitors play until they win, or until there's no time left on the clock. Recreational participants focus on their own performance. Competitors focus on being better than their competition. Recreational participants want to look good. Competitors want to win. Preparation is where mental toughness is built, not where it's tested. Champions prepare for competition by creating training conditions that are harder than actual competition. They practice when they're tired, when conditions are poor, when motivation is low. They deliberately expose themselves to pressure situations so that real competition feels familiar rather than overwhelming. Visualization is crucial for competitive mental toughness, but it must be realistic visualization. Don't just visualize yourself winning easily. Visualize yourself winning despite difficulties. See yourself making the right decisions when you're confused, staying calm when you're under pressure, executing perfectly when you're exhausted. Prepare your mind for the reality of competition, not the fantasy of it. The ability to reset between points, plays, or attempts is essential for sustained competitive performance. In competition, mistakes happen, bad calls occur, and unexpected setbacks arise. Mentally tough competitors don't let these events affect their performance on the next point. They have a mental reset button they can push to clear their mind and refocus on the task at hand. Competitive focus is different from regular focus. In competition, you must focus with intensity while maintaining awareness of the competitive situation. You need tunnel vision on your execution, while keeping peripheral vision on your opponent's state, the score, the time remaining, and other contextual factors that affect strategy. The concept of controlled aggression is crucial for competitive mental toughness. This is a state where you're attacking your objectives relentlessly while maintaining emotional control. You're not angry or out of control, but you're absolutely committed to imposing your will on the situation. You're calm internally, but fierce externally. Handling momentum shifts is where mental toughness shows itself most clearly. In any competition, momentum will swing back and forth. When momentum is against you, mentally tough competitors don't panic, don't change their strategy dramatically, and don't give up. They continue executing their game plan while making small adjustments to turn the momentum around. The ability to perform when winning is just as important as the ability to perform when losing. Many competitors struggle when they're ahead because they start playing not to lose instead of playing to win. They become conservative. They start thinking about the outcome instead of the process, and they give their opponent opportunities to come back. Understanding your opponent psychologically gives you competitive advantages. Every competitor has patterns, tendencies, and tells that reveal their mental state. They have triggers that create frustration, strategies that create confusion, and situations where they become mentally weak. Studying your competition is as important as training your own skills. The concept of competitive patience is crucial for long competitions or seasons. You don't need to win every point, every game, or every match. You need to win when it matters most. Sometimes the best strategy is to conserve energy, to let your opponent make mistakes, to wait for the right moment to make your move. This patience requires discipline and confidence. Pre-competition routines are essential for accessing your optimal competitive state. These routines should be designed to create the physical and mental state that produces your best performance. They might include specific warm-up exercises, visualization sequences, music, breathing patterns, or mental cues that trigger your competitive mindset. Managing competitive anxiety requires understanding the difference between arousal and anxiety. Arousal is physiological activation that enhances performance. Anxiety is worry about future outcomes that impairs performance. Mentally tough competitors learn to generate high arousal while maintaining low anxiety. They get excited about competing without worrying about results. The ability to raise your level when facing superior competition is a hallmark of mental toughness. Instead of being intimidated by stronger opponents, mentally tough competitors are inspired by them. They see tough competition as an opportunity to discover new levels of their own capability. They compete up to the level of their competition rather than down to it. Recovery between competitions is crucial for maintaining mental toughness over time. Just like physical recovery, mental recovery requires deliberate practices. This might include changing your environment, engaging in non-competitive activities, reflecting on lessons learned, or simply taking time away from thinking about competition. Finally, remember that competitive mental toughness is built through experience. The more high-pressure situations you expose yourself to, the more comfortable you become in those situations. Seek out competition, put yourself in challenging situations, and embrace the discomfort of not knowing if you'll win. Each competitive experience makes you mentally tougher for the next one. Chapter 13. Turning failure into fuel. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the raw material of success. Every great achievement in human history was built on a foundation of failures, setbacks, and seemingly impossible obstacles. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain average is not that great achievers fail less. It's that they transform their failures into fuel for their next attempt. Most people have a toxic relationship with failure. They see it as evidence that they're not good enough, that they should give up, that they're not meant to succeed. They let failure destroy their confidence, kill their motivation, and convince them to settle for less than they're capable of. This relationship with failure becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps them trapped in mediocrity. Champions have a completely different relationship with failure. They see failure as feedback, as information about what doesn't work, as clues about what to try next. They understand that failure is not a verdict about their worth or potential. It's data about their current approach. This perspective transforms failure from something that stops them into something that accelerates their progress. The first step in turning failure into fuel is changing your definition of failure. Most people define failure as not getting the result they wanted. Champions define failure as not learning from the experience. As long as you extract valuable lessons from every setback, it's not truly a failure, it's education. The only real failure is the failure to learn and improve. Failure analysis is a systematic process that transforms setbacks into insights. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of just feeling bad about it, you analyze it like a scientist studying data. What specifically went wrong? What were the contributing factors? What was within your control? And what wasn't? What would you do differently next time? This analysis turns emotional experiences into intellectual insights. The concept of rapid prototyping applies to goals just as much as it applies to products. Instead of spending months or years perfecting a plan before you try it, you create quick, small-scale tests to see what works. You expect most of these tests to fail, but each failure teaches you something that makes the next test better. This approach makes failure frequent, but also less costly and more educational. Emotional resilience after failure requires separating the event from your identity. Failure is something that happened to you, not something you are. You had a business that failed. You didn't become a failure. You made a mistake. You aren't a mistake. This distinction allows you to maintain self-worth while honestly acknowledging what went wrong. The timing of failure analysis matters tremendously. Analyzing failure when you're still emotional about it leads to biased conclusions and self-destructive thinking. The best practice is to allow yourself to feel the disappointment for a brief period. Then step back and analyze the situation objectively when you can think clearly about what really happened. Pattern recognition in failures accelerates learning exponentially. When you can identify that you keep failing in similar ways or for similar reasons, you can address the root cause rather than just the symptoms. Maybe you consistently underestimate how long projects will take. Maybe you repeatedly choose partners who aren't fully committed. Maybe you habitually avoid difficult conversations until they become crises. The concept of anti-fragile failure takes this process even further. Instead of just bouncing back from failure, you use failure to become stronger than you were before it happened. Each setback forces you to develop new capabilities, stronger mental muscles, better strategies, and more robust systems. You don't just recover, you upgrade. Failure tolerance must be built progressively. You can't go from being afraid of any setback to being comfortable with massive failures overnight. Start by deliberately exposing yourself to small, manageable failures in low-stakes situations. Build your confidence in your ability to handle failure by proving to yourself repeatedly that failure isn't fatal. The support system you build around failure makes a massive difference in how quickly you recover and learn. Surround yourself with people who will help you analyze what went wrong without either sugarcoating the problems or devastating your confidence. You need people who will challenge you to learn from failure without making you feel like a failure. Reframing techniques can transform the emotional impact of failure. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this here to teach me?" Instead of thinking, "I'm not good at this," think, "I'm not good at this yet." Instead of concluding, "This approach doesn't work," conclude, "This approach doesn't work." Under these specific conditions, the speed of your bounce back affects your long-term success more than the size of your failures. People who can recover quickly from setbacks get more attempts at success than people who need months or years to recover from each failure. The faster you can process failure, learn from it, and get back into action, the more likely you are to eventually succeed. Failure documentation creates a learning library that compounds over time. Keep a record of your failures, what you learned from them, and how you applied those lessons. Over time, this documentation becomes incredibly valuable because you can see patterns you might have missed and avoid repeating the same mistakes. The concept of failure graduation means that as you get better at your field, your failures become more sophisticated. A beginner's failures are different from an expert's failures. Your failures should evolve to match your growing capabilities. If you're still making the same types of mistakes you made years ago, you're not growing. Strategic failure involves deliberately choosing to fail fast in areas where you're uncertain rather than investing heavily in approaches that might not work. This might mean testing multiple small experiments simultaneously rather than betting everything on one big plan. You expect most experiments to fail, but you learn quickly and cheaply what does work. Finally, remember that your relationship with failure will determine your ceiling for success. If you can only handle small failures, you can only attempt small successes. If you can handle massive failures, you can attempt massive successes. The size of the risks you're willing to take and the size of the failures you're willing to endure directly determines the size of the successes available to you. Chapter 14. Mental Habits of Peak Performers. Peak performers don't achieve extraordinary results because they're fundamentally different from everyone else. They achieve extraordinary results because they've developed mental habits that automatically produce excellence. While average people rely on motivation, inspiration, and favorable circumstances, peak performers rely on systems, routines, and habits that work regardless of how they feel or what's happening around them. The foundation of peak performance is understanding that excellence is a habit, not an event. Aristotle said it best: "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Peak performers don't try to be excellent sometimes. They build systems that make excellence automatic. They create mental habits that consistently produce their best work. Morning routines are crucial for peak performers because they set the tone for the entire day. How you start determines how you proceed. Peak performers design morning routines that put them in optimal physical, mental, and emotional states before they begin their most important work. These routines might include exercise, meditation, planning, reading, or other activities that create the foundation for a peak performance day. The habit of clarifying priorities daily ensures that peak performers always focus on what matters most. They don't just create to-do lists, they identify the most important outcomes they want to achieve and then structure their day around those priorities. They ask themselves, what are the most important things I can accomplish today? And then build their schedule around those answers. Peak performers have developed the habit of single-tasking with complete focus. While others are multitasking and constantly switching between activities, peak performers give their complete attention to one thing at a time. They understand that divided attention produces divided results. So they train themselves to focus intensely on whatever they're doing in the moment. The habit of continuous learning keeps peak performers ahead of their competition. They don't just learn when they have to, they learn continuously because they know that what got them to their current level won't get them to the next level. They read, listen to podcasts, attend seminars, work with coaches, and actively seek out new information and perspectives. Mental rehearsal is a daily habit for peak performers. Before important events, meetings, or performances, they visualize themselves executing perfectly. They mentally practice handling challenges, making good decisions under pressure, and achieving their desired outcomes. This mental rehearsal programs their subconscious mind for success. The habit of seeking feedback actively sets peak performers apart from those who only accept feedback when it's offered. They regularly ask colleagues, coaches, mentors, and even critics what they could do better. They understand that blind spots are called blind spots because you can't see them yourself. So they actively seek outside perspectives. Peak performers have developed the habit of reflecting on their performance regularly. They don't just move from one task to the next without thinking about what they learned. They schedule time to analyze what went well, what could have gone better, and what they'll do differently next time. This reflection habit accelerates their learning and improvement. The habit of managing energy, not just time, is crucial for sustained peak performance. Peak performers understand that time management is useless if you don't have the energy to perform at your best during that time. They pay attention to their natural energy rhythms and schedule their most important work during their peak energy hours. Physical preparation habits support mental performance. Peak performers understand that their minds and bodies are connected, so they develop habits that keep both in optimal condition. This includes regular exercise, proper nutrition, adequate sleep, and stress management practices. They treat their bodies like high-performance machines that require proper maintenance. The habit of environmental design ensures that peak performers create conditions that support their best work. They don't just accept whatever environment they find themselves in. They actively design spaces that enhance focus, creativity, and productivity. This might mean organizing their workspace, eliminating distractions, or creating visual cues that remind them of their goals. Peak performers have developed the habit of saying no to good opportunities so they can say yes to great ones. They understand that every yes to one thing is a no to something else. So they're selective about how they invest their time and energy. They have clear criteria for evaluating opportunities and the discipline to stick to those criteria. The habit of systems thinking allows peak performers to see beyond individual tasks and understand how different activities connect to create larger outcomes. They don't just focus on being busy. They focus on designing systems that reliably produce the results they want. They ask, what system would make this outcome inevitable? Rather than, how hard do I need to work? Recovery habits are just as important as performance habits. Peak performers understand that you can't operate at maximum intensity all the time without burning out. They build recovery periods into their schedules, they take vacations without guilt, and they engage in activities that restore their mental and physical energy. The habit of challenging assumptions prevents peak performers from getting stuck in outdated thinking patterns. They regularly question their beliefs, strategies, and approaches. They ask, what if the opposite were true? And what am I assuming that might not be accurate? This intellectual humility keeps them growing and adapting. Peak performers have developed the habit of celebrating progress, not just final outcomes. They understand that motivation comes from acknowledging advancement, so they regularly recognize their improvement, their effort, and their small wins. This celebration habit maintains momentum during long-term projects and challenging periods. The habit of anticipating obstacles allows peak performers to prepare for challenges before they arise. They don't just plan for success, they plan for potential problems. They ask, what could go wrong? And how will I handle it if this happens? This preparation makes them more resilient when unexpected challenges arise. Finally, peak performers have developed the habit of raising their standards continuously. They don't get comfortable with their current level of performance. They constantly look for ways to do better. They ask, how can I make this even better? And what would the next level look like? This habit of continuous elevation ensures that they keep growing throughout their careers. These habits don't happen overnight, but they can be developed systematically. Start with 1 or 2 habits that would have the biggest impact on your performance. Establish them firmly, then gradually add others. Over time, these habits will become automatic and will consistently produce the peak performance you're capable of achieving. Chapter 15. Becoming mentally unstoppable. The ultimate goal of all mental training is to become truly unstoppable. To develop a mind so strong, so resilient, and so focused that no external circumstance can prevent you from achieving what you set out to achieve. This isn't about becoming invulnerable or never experiencing setbacks. It's about becoming someone who finds a way to win regardless of the obstacles, challenges, or opposition you face. Mental unstoppability begins with an unshakable core identity. You must know who you are at your deepest level, what you stand for, and what you're committed to achieving, regardless of what anyone else thinks or does. This core identity becomes your anchor in storms, your compass when you're lost, and your source of strength when everything else fails. The unstoppable mindset is built on the fundamental belief that there is always a way. When others see obstacles, you see puzzles to solve. When others see closed doors, you see windows to open. When others see reasons why something can't be done, you focus entirely on figuring out how it can be done. This isn't blind optimism. It's strategic certainty, based on your commitment to never stop looking for solutions. Unstoppable people have learned to separate what happens to them from what they do about it. They understand that they cannot control external events, but they can always control their response to those events. This responsibility becomes their superpower because it means they never give their power away to circumstances, other people, or external conditions. The concept of outcome independence is crucial for becoming unstoppable. This means you're so committed to your process, your effort, and your values that you're not emotionally dependent on any specific outcome. You do everything in your power to succeed. Then you let the results take care of themselves. This paradox of caring deeply while remaining unattached gives you incredible mental freedom and eliminates the fear that paralyzes most people. Unstoppable people have developed what I call strategic patience. They understand that meaningful achievement takes time, and they're willing to persist for as long as it takes. They don't get discouraged by slow progress or temporary setbacks because they're playing a long-term game. They measure their success in years and decades, not days and weeks. The ability to transform pain into power is a hallmark of mental unstoppability. Instead of being weakened by difficulties, challenges, and setbacks, unstoppable people use these experiences to build strength, wisdom, and determination. Every obstacle becomes training. Every setback becomes education. Every failure becomes fuel for their next attempt. Unstoppable people have mastered the art of mental compartmentalization. They can be disappointed about one area of their life while remaining confident and focused in other areas. They don't let problems in one domain contaminate their performance in other domains. They deal with each challenge in its own compartment, while maintaining overall forward momentum. The unstoppable mindset requires developing immunity to other people's opinions and criticism, while you remain open to constructive feedback and valuable insights. You don't let other people's doubts, fears, or limitations become your own. You understand that most people will try to discourage you from pursuing ambitious goals because your success makes them uncomfortable about their own choices. Continuous elevation is a core principle of mental unstoppability. You never settle for your current level of performance, no matter how good it is. You're always looking for ways to improve, to grow, to become better than you were yesterday. This commitment to continuous improvement means that you're always moving toward your goals, even when progress seems slow. Unstoppable people have learned to love the process more than the outcome. They find satisfaction in doing the work, not just in getting the results. This love of process makes them sustainable because they don't need external rewards to maintain their motivation. They're driven by internal satisfaction with excellence, improvement, and giving their best effort. The concept of multiple pathways thinking is essential for unstoppability. You never depend on just one strategy, one approach, or one opportunity. You always have backup plans, alternative routes, and multiple ways to achieve your objectives. When one path is blocked, you simply switch to another path without losing momentum or confidence. Mental unstoppability requires developing comfort with being misunderstood. Most people want to be liked, accepted, and understood by everyone. Unstoppable people understand that pursuing extraordinary goals often means being misunderstood by ordinary people. They're comfortable with this misunderstanding because they know their purpose is more important than their popularity. The ability to perform at your best when conditions are at their worst is the ultimate test of mental unstoppability. Anyone can perform well when everything is going smoothly. Unstoppable people perform best when the pressure is highest, when the stakes are greatest, when everyone is watching, and when failure would be most devastating. Unstoppable people have developed what I call relentless focus. They can maintain concentration on their most important objectives despite distractions, setbacks, interruptions, and opposition. They don't get sidetracked by opportunities that don't align with their primary mission. They say no to almost everything, so they can say yes to the few things that matter most. The practice of mental rehearsal for adversity prepares unstoppable people for any challenge they might face. They don't just visualize success. They visualize overcoming obstacles, handling criticism, dealing with setbacks, and finding ways to win when everything goes wrong. This mental preparation makes them ready for reality rather than just for fantasy. Emotional mastery is crucial for mental unstoppability. You cannot be truly unstoppable if your emotions control you rather than you controlling your emotions. Unstoppable people feel the same emotions as everyone else, but they choose their responses based on strategy rather than feeling. They use emotions as information rather than as instructions. The unstoppable person has developed unshakable self-trust. They trust their ability to figure things out, to handle whatever comes up, to learn what they need to learn, and to do what needs to be done. This self-trust isn't based on never making mistakes. It's based on their proven ability to recover from mistakes and keep moving forward. Finally, mental unstoppability requires understanding that your mind is your most valuable asset and your most powerful tool. Everything you achieve will be achieved first in your mind before it shows up in reality. When you train your mind to be truly unstoppable, you become capable of achieving things that others consider impossible. The journey to becoming mentally unstoppable never ends. Every day presents new opportunities to strengthen your mind, to test your resolve, and to prove to yourself that you truly are unstoppable. The person you become through this process is more valuable than any external achievement, because once you develop an unstoppable mind, you can achieve anything you set that mind to accomplish. Your mind is waiting for you to unlock its full potential. Everything you need to become unstoppable already exists within you. The only question is whether you're willing to do the work, pay the price, and become the person you're capable of becoming. The choice is yours, but remember this: An unstoppable mind is not built overnight, but it is built one thought, one decision, and one action at a time. Now go become mentally unstoppable.